If you ever drive alone at night, don't. Because the 4 stories you're about to hear happened to real drivers who all thought they were alone. It was 4:12 in the morning when I merged onto the interstate. The sky pitch black in that deep pre-dawn darkness, where even the horizon didn't exist. The only living things the road, the wind, and occasional blurs of headlights passing the other way. I was late for work, cruising around 80 with my fingers tapping the wheel and my coffee untouched. The highway nearly empty, just how I liked it, when I noticed headlights slowly appearing in my side mirror. At first I ignored them, because cars pass all the time. But after about 30 seconds, something felt wrong, because the car wasn't passing or falling back. It was sitting perfectly in my blind spot, and when I shifted to look, it was still there. I sped up, it sped up. I slowed down, it slowed too. And now I was paying attention, switching lanes only to see it remain glued beside my rear quarter panel like it was attached, its windows too dark to see inside as a minute passed. Then 2. My chest tightening as I pushed to 90, and the engine whined, yet the car matched me instantly. And that's when I realized it wasn't just pacing me, it was watching me. I leaned forward, and for half a second under a passing streetlight, the interior lit up, and I saw him, the driver, not looking at the road, but staring directly at me without blinking or moving, just staring. My pulse hammering as I looked away and gripped the wheel tighter, muttering for him to pass while I accelerated. Yet the car stayed beside me until suddenly it surged ahead, pulling in front fast and giving me 2 seconds of relief before its brake lights exploded red, and he slammed on his brakes, forcing me to swerve with screeching tires and a heart that nearly stopped as I shouted in shock. But before I could react, he swerved too, cutting in front again, and slowing, then slowing again, trying to stop me. Adrenaline flooded my body as I changed lanes, and he blocked me. Changed again, and he blocked again, matching every move while the highway stayed empty with no exits and no other cars, just me and him, until his driver window rolled down and his arm slowly extended out, pointing not forward or backward, but directly at me before his finger slid across his throat in a slow slicing motion that turned my blood cold. I slammed the gas past 95, engine roaring and wind screaming as he matched me instantly, and I wondered how his car could keep up. Then far ahead headlights appeared, a truck, hope sparking because if I could reach it I wouldn't be alone. But he must have realized too, because suddenly his car lurched toward mine and rammed my side, the impact shaking my whole vehicle as I fought the wheel, and he hit me again harder, my tires drifting toward the shoulder, where I knew at that speed I wouldn't survive. The truck getting closer as I floored it with everything I had, the engine screaming while the distance shrank. 50 yards, 40, 30, when he slammed into me one last time, and then suddenly stopped, his car jerking away, slowing, falling back while I didn't slow at all, and flew past the truck with my heart pounding so loud I could hear it over the engine. And when I checked my mirror, the car was gone. No headlights, no taillights, nothing like it had never existed. I drove another 20 miles before pulling over, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn off the ignition. And when I stepped out, I saw a long dent scraped across my driver's side door, proof it had happened, and I wasn't imagining it. But what bothered me most wasn't the damage. It was what I noticed when I leaned closer to inspect it. Scratched into the paint, barely visible yet deep enough to cut metal, were 4 words: "You shouldn't drive alone." It was a little past 1 a.m. when I crossed mile marker 300, and I remember the sign clearly because I'd been counting them down for the last hour while driving all night, trying to make it home before sunrise. The highway completely empty with no cars ahead or behind, just miles of dark asphalt stretching into nothingness, and my headlights feeling small against it, I was doing about 75 when I saw something on the shoulder that at first looked like debris, until the shape shifted into a crooked car parked halfway off the road with hazard lights blinking on and off. And in my mirror, there were still no cars behind me. So normally, I wouldn't have stopped. Not out there. Not at night. But as I got closer, I saw someone standing beside the car, waving both arms frantically like they were desperate. And I slowed slightly as I passed, noticing he looked young, maybe mid-20s, hoodie and jeans, pointing at his tire and clasping his hands like he was begging. And I drove about 50 yards past before my conscience got the better of me, and I sighed, telling myself, just help him. 2 minutes, then pulled onto the shoulder as gravel crunched under my tires, and in my mirror, I watched him jog toward me in a way that felt off. Too fast, too eager. He reached my window breathing hard and said, "Man, thank God, my tire blew out. I don't have a spare. My phone's dead. Could you give me a ride to the next exit?" And his voice sounded normal, but his eyes didn't, because they kept flicking past me into my backseat. And I swallowed and said cautiously, yeah, sure. Next exit's like 10 minutes. And relief spread across his face too instantly, as he thanked me, and I unlocked the passenger door. He got in quickly, shut it, and immediately locked it, which I didn't think about as I pulled back onto the highway. For the first minute we didn't speak until I noticed he wasn't looking forward, but staring at my dashboard, specifically my GPS, and he asked if I lived around there, and nodded slowly when I said yes, like he was memorizing something. Then silence again until I noticed headlights in the rearview mirror far behind us, even though I hadn't seen a car for hours. And they got closer fast, until within seconds, they were right on my tail. And I frowned, muttering that the guy was flying. But my passenger didn't react or turn around. He just kept staring ahead, while the car behind flashed its lights once, twice, 3 times. And when I glanced sideways, he was smiling slightly, like he knew something I didn't, and a chill crept up my spine as the car behind pulled into the left lane to pass. And as it came alongside my passenger, suddenly raised his hand and waved, not at me, but at the other driver. And my stomach dropped as the passing car slowed and matched our speed beside us. The driver turning his head to look straight at my passenger and nodding, while my hands tightened on the wheel, and I asked what was going on but got no answer. Then the car beside us sped up, pulled in front of me, and slammed on its brakes, making me shout and stomp mine as tires screamed and the seatbelt locked across my chest. And before I could react, my passenger grabbed my wrist with an iron grip and said calmly, "Don't." And my blood went cold, because behind us, another pair of headlights appeared, racing toward us. So we were trapped, front and back. My pulse thundering as I whispered what this was, and the man beside me leaned close with warm breath at my ear and said, "You shouldn't pick up strangers." While the car in front slowed to a crawl, and the one behind boxed us in so I couldn't move or escape. And then my passenger reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out something small and shiny, metal, a knife, and my chest felt like it collapsed until suddenly red and blue lights exploded across the highway with blinding flashes and distant sirens, the car behind swerving and taking off, the car in front flooring it and vanishing in seconds, and my passenger freezing with wide eyes before throwing the door open while we were still rolling and bolting onto the road as I slammed the brakes, shaking, heart hammering, breath uneven, and a state trooper's cruiser roared past, chasing the fleeing cars. I sat there trembling until after a minute, I noticed something on my passenger seat, the knife he'd dropped, and under the flashing reflections on the blade, I saw tiny letters scratched into the metal. 3 words. Not tonight again. It was just after midnight when the fog rolled in, not slowly or gradually, but all at once, like someone dumped a cloud directly onto the highway. and visibility dropped to maybe 20 feet. So I eased my foot off the gas and let my speed fall from 70 to 40 as the world outside my windshield turned into a gray tunnel where my headlights didn't cut through but bounced back like I was driving inside smoke. The road completely empty with no tail lights ahead or headlights behind. Just silence. So I turned on my hazards, and the blinking amber light filled the car with a soft pulse. On, off, on, off, while I focused on the white line at the edge of the road to guide me so I wouldn't drift into the other lane. Minutes passed before suddenly a dark, low shape appeared ahead, and I slammed the brakes, the car skidding slightly before stopping a few feet behind a sedan, parked halfway on the shoulder and halfway in the lane with no lights, no hazards, just sitting there. And I stared, waiting for movement, thinking first accident, then engine trouble, then something worse, considering reversing before the sedan's brake lights flickered red and the driver door creaked open, and a tall, thin man stepped out wearing a long, dark coat hanging past his knees, not waving or calling out, but walking slowly and deliberately toward me. So I cracked my window an inch and called if he was okay, and he stopped in my headlights where the light hit his face, yet somehow didn't illuminate it properly. His features looking wrong like shadows, sat where his eyes should be, and he said calmly his car stalled and asked if I could help push it, his voice steady, too steady, as I glanced past him and noticed his car was perfectly aligned with the road, not angled or badly pulled over, but placed there, which bothered me. So I said I didn't think that was safe in this fog and suggested roadside assistance. Yet he didn't respond or blink or move, just stared as seconds stretched until he tilted his head slightly, like he was studying me, and said, "You should step out." Not as a request, but a statement, making my grip tighten on the wheel as I replied I was good. Then, after another long pause, he smiled slowly, and I saw his teeth. Too many. Not sharp, just too many. Like his mouth was too full. And a cold wave rolled down my spine as I quickly said I'd call someone for him and reached for my phone. But the second I looked down, he moved fast and slammed his hand against my window with a loud bang that made me jump as his face appeared inches from the glass, still smiling and staring. And then from somewhere behind his car, another silhouette stood up. Then another. And another. Shapes emerging from the fog like they'd been crouching there the whole time, watching and waiting. And my brain finally caught up that this wasn't a breakdown, but a trap. So I threw the car into reverse and slammed the gas, tires spinning before gripping, while the man didn't move or chase, but just stood watching as I backed away. The figures behind him stepping closer to the road, yet none running or shouting, just watching. And I turned the wheel hard, shifted into drive, and sped forward past the stalled sedan, glancing sideways as I passed, and seeing inside there was no steering wheel, no front seats, nothing. Just empty space like it wasn't meant to be driven at all, making my chest tighten as I hit the gas, harder, until about a mile later, the fog thinned and streetlights appeared and civilization returned. And I didn't stop until I reached a crowded gas station where I finally breathed. But when I stepped out and walked around my car to calm down, I saw something on my rear windshield written in the condensation from the outside. 4 words traced clearly across the glass. "You left too early." It was 2:47 a.m. when I saw the exit sign, and I remember the exact time because I'd just checked my dashboard clock for the 10th time in 5 minutes after driving for hours on an endless stretch of black highway, with no towns, no rest stops, no gas stations, just darkness and empty land. And my fuel light had turned on 10 minutes earlier, so I told myself I'd find a station soon. Then I saw it. Exit 41. Services. and relief washed over me instantly as I switched lanes and took the ramp. But the second I left the highway, everything went quiet. Not normal quiet, but dead quiet. My tires rolling down the curved ramp, while my headlights illuminated a small service area below, with one building, one pump, and one glowing vending machine. No cars, no people. Yet I was low on gas, so I pulled up anyway under a flickering overhead light that buzzed like a dying insect, stepped out into air that smelled stale like dust and metal, grabbed the pump handle and squeezed. But nothing happened. Squeezed again, and still nothing. So I looked toward the building where lights were on and walked to the door, my footsteps sounding too loud on gravel, and saw a sign taped to the glass reading, "Back in 5 minutes." Checking my watch, 2:49, and muttering under my breath before turning back toward my car and freezing because there was now another vehicle parked beside it that hadn't been there before. A dark SUV with engine off, lights off, windows tinted black, and my chest tightened as I stared, waiting for movement. But there was none, the lot still silent and deserted. So trying to act normal, I leaned against my car pretending to check my phone while watching it from the corner of my eye, until after about 30 seconds, I heard a soft click, and the SUV's driver door opened, and a tall, broad-shouldered man in a dark jacket and gloves stepped out, closing the door gently, too gently, without looking at me, just standing there facing the pumps completely still in a way that made my stomach twist, like he wasn't waiting, but listening. So I cleared my throat and said the pump wasn't working. Yet he didn't respond, or move, or react. And when I asked if the place was open, there was silence, until slowly he turned only his head toward me. Not his body, his face blank. Not angry, not friendly, just empty, and said flatly, "They're closed." And I nodded, saying I figured, but he kept staring without blinking or looking away. And every instinct in my body screamed. Something wasn't right. So I opened my door casually, saying I'd try the next exit. And still staring, he said, "There isn't one," making my hand stop on the handle as I asked what he meant, and he replied, "This is the last exit," tightening my chest because that couldn't be possible since I clearly remembered passing signs for food and gas ahead, didn't I? Yet he tilted his head and said quietly, "No, you didn't," sending a cold chill down my spine, and I forced a laugh, saying I was pretty sure I had. But he didn't smile or react, just said, "You shouldn't be here." And my pulse started pounding as I slid into the driver's seat and said I was leaving, to which he nodded once and said, "Good." And I shut and locked the door with shaking hands and started the engine, my headlights lighting the lot and revealing dozens of tire marks in the dust circling around my car, layered over each other like many vehicles had driven loops around that exact spot. So I immediately hit reverse and saw the SUV still hadn't moved, and the man still stood beside it, watching as I backed toward the exit road, turned the wheel, pressed the gas, and the car didn't move. My heart slamming as I pressed harder, and the engine revved, but the car stayed still. Panic shooting through me as I checked the gear and saw I was already in drive, and tried again with no result, until I heard a soft sound behind me. Breathing. And my blood froze as I slowly turned toward the back seat and saw nothing but emptiness and silence. Swallowing hard and telling myself I imagined it, until right beside my ear, a whisper said, "You weren't supposed to stop." And I screamed and whipped around to nothing there, my hands trembling violently as I faced forward again and saw the man from the SUV now standing directly in front of my hood without me seeing or hearing him approach. And he leaned down slowly until his face was inches from my windshield, his lips curling slightly into something worse than a smile, before he silently mouthed 4 words I read perfectly. "No one leaves here." And suddenly my car jerked forward as if something released it, and I slammed the gas, tires screaming as I shot past him toward the exit road, without looking back or slowing or breathing, flying up the ramp and emerging onto the highway. And only when I checked my mirror did I realize there was no exit behind me at all. Just a guardrail and a sign that read, "No services." Next 120 miles. If you like this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos.